There are cities today that will be Atlantises tomorrow. And not just sections of cities, but some whole cities. There won't be myths because the cities really existed, and we'll tell stories about them. Our efforts to stop climate change are both to protect the lives that we have today, but also they're going to shape the stories that our descendants tell about us. There will be a lot of stories about what we've lost, the things we failed to protect.
For centuries, people have been drawn to the coast, building the great metropolises of our time right on the water's edge. But now, a draft of a landmark UN report seen by AFP has gathered crucial research from across the world, laying out in more detail than ever the devastating impact climate change will have on coastal cities. As the earth warms and the ice melts, the seas, once a source of wealth, will redraw the map of the world, forcing millions from their homes. Eventually, scientists predict entire cities will have to be abandoned to the flood.
We're all mortal. We live our lives knowing we're going to die. But I don't think we often think of our cities in those terms. And most of our coastal cities are mortal. A lot of them will end by flood in the long run. And by 2050, that may be much more widely appreciated.
Many of the world's major cities are among those most threatened. Mumbai, Jakarta, New York, Tokyo, Lagos, Shanghai, Miami, or Dhaka. Those least able to protect themselves will be hit the hardest.
যে জায়গা সেই জায়গাও যদি না থাকতে পারি তো তার কোনো রাস্তাই নাই, থাকার মতন কোনো পরিস্থিতি নেই। আমরা তো পারুম না তো টাকা উস্কাইতে একটা ফ্ল্যাট ভাড়া লইতে এক জায়গা ভালো জায়গায় থাকতে পরিবেশে। তখন আমরা কি করব? তখন তাকে এইভাবে মরণ দেব, আর কোনো তো রাস্তা নেই।
Even if global warming is kept under the 2 degrees Celsius agreed in 2015 in Paris, UN climate scientists predict sea levels could be up to 60 centimeters higher by the end of the century. And this, coupled with increasingly extreme weather, could spell disaster for millions. But profound consequences will come years before that.
What's interesting for mid-century is not just sea level rise, but sea level rise plus, the average worst flood of the year, or plus a 100-year flood, because that's going to happen in some places. What does sea level rise plus a flood look like?
Because of the greenhouse gases already in the air, sea level rise for the next few decades is already baked in. For people in at-risk areas like the residents of this informal settlement near Cape Town, even just the slightest change in conditions puts them in harm's way.
This is the room I've built for myself. You can take a look inside. This is a wetland, you see, and I don't have other place that I can build in, see.
Although according to the UN report, Cape Town is an extensive adapter, stark inequalities, legacy of apartheid and deep poverty means many in townships are exposed to flooding. By the end of the century, more than 100,000 people will have likely lost their homes to sea level rise. All over the world, homes, industry, and precious historical buildings lie just feet from the water. Up to 140 World Heritage Sites are at risk of coastal flooding, mostly in the Mediterranean. Venice, the most threatened, is also subsiding.
L'innalzamento di 50 cm sarebbe catastrofico per Venezia, perché con 50 cm in più avremmo un livello medio di 82 cm e il livello di Piazza San Marco è a 80 cm. Vuol dire che avremmo sempre l'acqua in Piazza San Marco.
Without adaptation to sea level rise, a worst-case scenario projection calculated damages between 1.6 and 3.2 trillion US dollars by 2050 for the world's 136 largest coastal cities. And although some degree of flooding is already inevitable in many parts of the world, the UN report says the long-term prospects for many coastal cities is dismal, without urgent and ambitious emission cuts. In the meantime, cities will have to find ways to live with water. One of the lowest lying nations in the world, the Netherlands is a world leader in keeping the water out.
We built dykes, we built levees for years and years, but we also see that in the last few years rainfall becomes a problem and Rotterdam really is a bathtub. 85% of our city is below the level of the sea. Every drop of water that falls on our city, we need to pump it up. So we really need to be innovative to keep our feet dry, so to say. So I think by necessity, we are a front runner.
Dutch engineers travel the world sharing their expertise. But many poorer countries and communities are unable to afford costly infrastructure projects that would protect their homes. However, the UN report warns that even places with state-of-the-art flood defences are not safe. Even they may be, in the end, faced with only one possible solution: to retreat inland.
A lot of our kind of old flood stories talk about people sinning and being punished by a flood. And in the past, there really was no relationship that I can imagine between people's behavior and the coming of the flood. But right now, our choices are making the flood. So I think that the stories our descendants tell about us will not be very generous unless we can really cut our pollution a great deal.